Well, hey there. Welcome. We are so glad that you're joining us today. You know, our core purpose here at Blended Family Breakthrough is to cultivate hope for blended families. And it has been amazing over the years to hear the feedback from you, our listeners, that we offer hope even when this whole blending journey might feel a bit hopeless.
That's right.
Well, our guest today is someone who cultivated hope in us as well. Our first connection with Ron Deal was way back in 2001, and we didn't know it at the time, but his workshop that we attended the weekend before our wedding is actually what kicked off our life focus of cultivating hope for blended families.
Absolutely. And, you know, since then, Ron has published a whole library of books. But now a new book has just been released that may be his most powerful one yet, The Mindful Marriage. Why his most powerful book, you ask? Well, the tools and the principles in this book are critical for every marriage and relationship. And his co-author, Nan Deal, who happens to be his wife of 39 years at the time of this recording, has joined him in writing this book. Nan and Ron's story, their vulnerability and practical focus make this book a must-have for everyone listening.
That's right. Ron and Nan are popular speakers specializing in the principles of restoration therapy, blended families, and support for grieving parents. Ron, a best-selling author, licensed marriage and family therapist, and podcaster, is also a senior director at Family Life. Nan, a retired teacher, now works with Live Thankfully. We are so excited for you to connect with our friends Ron and Nan today, just on the other side of the intro. And while the intro runs, would you give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify if we've been bringing value and cultivating hope for you? Welcome to the Blended Family Breakthrough Podcast. We're your hosts, Mike and Kim.
We believe in a world where blended families can experience a future full of hope, connection, and peace.
That's why we offer tools, strategies, and guidance that move you from a place of confusion and conflict to experiencing a life of confidence and connection.
We're so glad you're joining us for authentic and sometimes comical conversations as we cover everything from romance to parenting, and yes, even dealing with that difficult ex.
So if you're ready to experience breakthrough in your blended family, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Well, welcome, Ron and Nan. Thank you so much for being here. We're very excited to connect with you.
Oh,
Thank you.
Yeah, we're excited to be here.
So it sounds like we have just published a book. Is that right? Can you tell us just a tiny bit about that?
It's the 4-year gestation for this baby.
Awesome.
Wow.
Okay.
Tell us about that.
So the mindful marriage is my goodness, the outworking of a lot of time and effort at working at our usness in collaboration with our therapist, who just happens to be, we think, brilliant.
Yes.
And has heavily influenced the field of marriage and family therapy himself. And we didn't know it at the time when he was helping to put the pieces back together with us. But we partnered with he and his wife to bring what they teach in academic circles around the world, and it's being practiced around the world, and just trying to make it in a narrative where it reaches the average person. We're average people. So it's our little story of mess and how we have come through that and are still coming through that, and how other people can join us on that journey, because we know it works.
I like to tell people it's 3 therapists and a regular chick came together to write a book. And, well, I'm just so thankful that these hard, thought-provoking concepts from the Hargraves are now put on the bottom shelf. You know, the cookies are on the bottom shelf now for people like me, because I just know how important it is and how it has blessed my life and blessed our marriage. And so I'm just excited to be a part of a project like that, you know, just for everybody out there that's struggling. And I think it gives you hope.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. And we're excited to kind of dive into a little bit of that today. And just your vulnerability and your openness and honesty in the book and in other venues where we've gotten to cross paths. we just commend you, and we're grateful for that. It makes it so real and tangible.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 10 years into marriage, we almost lost our marriage. And
We were right on the verge.
Absolutely.
It was a tough season.
Mm-hmm. And it seems as though there was that similar significant moment for the two of you as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wonder if you might be able to share us a little bit about the journey since then with us.
How did the pieces fall apart? And then what has helped to put those pieces back together?
I'll start. So we've been married 39 years, just celebrated our 39th anniversary, and it's a miracle.
Yeah, it is a miracle.
In 2007, we hit a wall. And Nan can explain well, there's a backstory. There's always a backstory, right? To when you hit that wall. For us, it was a slow boil.
Yeah. I think unbeknownst to us, we had lots of baggage that we brought into the marriage. And some of those we chose not to unpack. Some of them we hid in the closet, and some of them we just really were not aware of. And then, as life goes, hard things come. We live in a hard world, and there's lots of pain. And we can cause each other pain, and pain can come upon us. And so, but I think we brought in a lot of things from family of origin, and that's just the things that we've done to one another that have caused a lot of pain in our relationship. So it wasn't just a overnight, here we go. I think it was a slow, low boil that just kind of came to a head.
And I'll say, I saw her baggage really well. Isn't that the way marriage goes, right?
And I saw his really well, and would like to throw it at him really well.
Most
Fix
couples,
this, get rid of this.
Like most couples, I think we spend a whole lot of time trying to get rid of the other person's baggage.
Yeah.
Yes.
And ironically enough, tried to get the other person to love us in such a way that our baggage would go away. The baggage I didn't even know I had.
Right.
But somehow she's supposed to magically fix all of that in us. These are the crazy things we do to each other in marriage. And I think it's really common that couples get stuck in that. And we did, absolutely, got stuck.
I think the catalyst for me was we had made a significant move from one place to the other in the country. And I thought that would fix Ron's overworking and his drivenness and his building his ministry, so to speak, and travel and being gone. I just thought, it's a fresh start. Hopefully he's been hearing me harp on this for years and years and years. And when it didn't, and then I saw that at the time our boys were 8, 10, and 12, right on the cusp of this middle school age where, kids need their dad, boys need their dad. And I just was tired of why do you keep leaving for other people? Or so it seemed to me. Why do you keep going? And it's never enough. It's always, there's more. And when you do go, you'll meet people and you have all these conversations. Well, it just added more work.
Yeah.
And it just was one of those things where one night, I can't remember where he was, and he'd come home, and I met him at our bedroom door, and I said, it's either you or me. You can pack this bag or I can pack this bag, but I'm not doing this anymore. This is ridiculous, and I cannot do this anymore. And I was very dysregulated, and it was one of those, I'm going to blame you. I'm shaming myself all over the place. I'm trying to control this situation, and I am really wanting you to escape or me to escape, but I'm doing all of them, and I just want this to stop.
Yeah.
And he said, I'll get us some help. And it was a funny story. The first couple of tries were, that person's headed out of the country and that person can't help us. And I just wouldn't back down. I'm like, get us some help. Get us some help. And he said, well, Dr. Hargrave lives in town. He's my mentor, but he's got a 2-year waiting list. And I said, call him. And it's like 9:00 at night.
Yeah.
And he did. And we were in Terry's office the next day.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that began the journey of,
The next day.
began the journey of him helping us,
Wow.
which was so pivotal because it was 2 years before our son Connor passes away. And we would say that was provision for us.
Wow.
It was a grace. It was a gift because he was really working. And then he was really working with us, really helping us. But then the bottom drops out and we really are not needing that kind of help anymore. And Terry stayed by our side and just walked in grief with us. And he really did it so beautifully and so kindly. And yeah, I'm just very grateful for him and for Sharon.
Sure.
So Nan, I'm curious, knowing what you know now about emotional regulation and everything you've learned, if you could go back to that moment where you met Ron at the door and said, I'm done. One of us is out of here. And you recognize you want to blame, you want to escape, you want to shame. What was the underlying emotion? What was at the root of that?
Oh, abandonment for me. Abandonment. And I had been doing all four of those my entire life. You know, I have abandonment in childhood, and I have abandonment in my marriage. And, you know, after Connor, I really felt abandoned in that loss too. It's just a very isolating experience. And our Western culture doesn't grieve well. The loss of a child is very isolating because people don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. You feel very alone. And I've tried so hard my whole life to manage that abandonment pain with, I'm going to blame you. It's you, Mom and Dad, or it's this circumstance, or no, it's you, Ron, because you're doing this. Or I'll go, if that doesn't work and I've exhausted that, then I'll go to shame and go, well, this is, it must be me because everybody keeps leaving me. Or then I go into control of, I'm going to talk this out of you. I'm going to try to convince you with my words.
And she has a lot of words.
I do have a lot of words.
Awesome.
A
That's
lot
good for an author, I guess. Yeah.
of words.
Yes, or I can't control you with words, but I'm going to control the narrative of my environment by in doing things with my children, or diving into this or that, or trying to get you to see how wonderful I am. I can perform as well. And then when those three things don't work and I have lost any kind of coping, I will go into escape. And it can look like a lot of things. I mean, I used to escape as a teenager with a car, you know. That was a great vehicle to escape.
Get away from home.
Get away from home and things like that. I can escape by just withdrawing from Ron. And so I do all four, and I tell people it's okay. I'm an overachiever. It's okay to do all four, or ebb and flow into, you know, one or two. But yeah.
When it comes to blame, shame, control, and escape, I'm a blame controller. Which, if you were to ask me that same question, you know, go back to that day, what was going on? Well, so far you've just heard a story about me working too much. And that's a story a lot of us have heard before, you know. A spouse who just works all the time and focused on that. And they're in their head, even when they're home, they're in their head working or whatever it is. But I had no idea what was behind that for me. And for me, it was inadequacy, the fear of just not being enough. And what I learned real early in my life was to perform really well, not perform as in fake, but excel at whatever I did, whether it was athletics or school. For me, it was behavior. My parents had high moral standards, and I wanted to meet those standards. And so I lived up to everything I possibly could all the time. So excel, perform. That's that control category of behavior of I'm going to get it right. And so when I went into my career and started having opportunities, I wanted to get it right. You know, I wanted to take advantage of every opportunity, and I was driven. And that's ultimately what I was driving at is I'm good enough, right? You know, if I can perform in all these spaces, then somehow I will finally feel enough.
And you know what the insidious thing is about that? I never, ever saw it as an inadequacy in him.
Right.
Never. Because the way it was affecting me, here comes my pride, it's taking you away from me. It's you giving to all these other things and all these other people, and they're singing your praise. I really saw it as selfishness in him and his pride. And you really want to be gone all the time, and you really want to do all these wonderful things and just be away from me. And I never saw it as my husband's in pain. And this is what he's doing out of his pain. So when you don't see pain and you just see, oh, you're just trying to be everything to all people but me.
Yeah.
Wow, you can get in a real vicious cycle with that.
Yeah.
And likewise, her control or blame, criticism, all that I just saw as
Anger.
anger and hard to be around. And she didn't like me, didn't like what well, guess what? That taps into that I'm not good enough stuff, right?
Vicious cycle.
So that just drives me to work a little harder, which makes her feel abandoned. And you can see where that leads. So in 2007, all that comes to a head. And we start this journey we think the journey is about getting the other person to finally
Of course.
change and love us the way they should, because God knows I'm, worthy of you being nicer than you are, which is the way most of us think. And instead, we went down this journey with Dr. Hargrave of learning how to look in the mirror, take a deep breath, and look at ourselves first. And really do the hard work of looking at me so I can learn how to bring the best of me to our us.
Yes. Wow.
What we're talking about here is our copes, how we cope and how we react to the pain we experience. And isn't it fun? Because Mike's...
I'm the abandonment one.
Yeah.
That's one of my strongest pain points is abandonment. And
how
I'm
do you
definitely
cope?
a blamer controller.
So when Mike's feeling abandoned, he does the similar copes of blaming and getting angry and lashing out.
Overfunctioning.
But what do you really want when you're feeling abandoned?
I want a hug. I want some reassurance.
It's
And
connection.
I don't know why I think that overfunctioning and stomping my feet and slamming the cupboards and, all of that is, how's that going to get me a
That
hug?
just pushes me away. That creates disconnection, not what he really wants, which is connection. So these things that we do in response to our own pain are not getting our needs met. They're actually sabotaging our relationship, which is a major discovery that we hit as well as you guys. But tell us a little bit about kind of the model of this book and what you teach and what you're trying to help couples realize and transform in their marriage. It's called The Mindful Marriage, which I love the title. And the subtitle here is Create Your Best Relationship Through Understanding and Managing Yourself.
Oh, wait, what? Yourself? Like Ron just said, like when we got into counseling too, I'm like, this is going to be awesome because they're going to fix Kim. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
And I think everybody enters that process that way, but this is about yourself. So tell us more about that.
So at a very high level, the roots of this book are in restoration therapy, innovated by Dr. Terry Hargrave, who has taught at the seminary level for 35 years and recently retired. And we, as Nan said, just joined with he and his wife to try to put the cookies on the bottom shelf for regular people so that we can all get access to this wonderful stuff. And at a very high level, here's the journey. I look in the mirror, I learn how to look at me and understand me, what makes me tick, why I do what I do. My brain has some habits that I didn't even know I had, and it's going to react the same way over and over and over again, and I need to understand that. Because some of that's useful, but most of it's not. And once I understand that, then I can learn how to manage that part of me in such a way that I'm bringing out my better self. To me, that's a little important distinction. Everybody listening to us right now knows that most of the time you're a great person. You're a decent spouse. You're loving, and your heart is to love your spouse well, to have a happy marriage, and you're kind and considerate and sacrificial, and you do a lot of things most of the time. But all of us listening know that there are moments where we completely lose it. We get triggered. We become somebody we later don't like. That's our not so happy, bad self. When you're good, you're good. When you're bad, you're bad. And it's the bad self that we got to understand and learn how to do away with. And it's neurological at this point. That's kind of the hard news, is that all of this is actually embodied in our brain, neurological system, body emotions. And we react so quickly, nanoseconds. And then we become that person that we don't like, and bad things happen, and we hurt each other, and things escalate out of control. So learning to understand that part of us, take it off, and put on the part of us we really want to be, when we're at our best.
I think for me, I just, like Ron said, I don't like myself when I'm this way, when I'm doing those things that I am too. I'm a slammer of the cupboard doors and the stomping of my feet. And I just feel like it's an immaturity in me. And it really doesn't bring out the best of me. I don't like myself. I turn around and go, why did I do that?
Yes.
Why do I keep doing that? Why do I keep saying that over and over again or thinking that same thing? And for me, I got really tired. I got exhausted. Plus, it wasn't blessing us at all. Our usness was not healthy. There wasn't a deep intimacy there. And literally, I was looking at Ron with sometimes disdain in some ways. I mean, he would do something and I think, there you go again. There you go again. How it's affecting me. And it was just a vicious, icky dance that when we're not that way and we're not doing those things, when we do see, oh, this is my pain. This is what I do in my pain. But you know what? Today, I'm going to walk out some truth of what can I do in the peace here about this? Once we walked in that, it's like, wait a minute. I really would rather walk that way than I would the other way. And I just see the gifts that it brings to me, but to us. And man, those ruts that we used to get in used to last weeks and months and maybe never have resolution, to where now last week a working one came up and it resolved that morning. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Nobody got frustrated and angry and the cupboard doors didn't get slammed. And there was some pain there, but then there was some peace there. And it's like, wait a minute. It was just so wonderful. And I'd rather do that each day than do the other.
Those moments are so powerful now when you realize, we don't have to keep repeating what we've been doing for so many years.
We don't have to get stuck there.
You used a little word there, Nan, and I wonder if the two of you might expand on that a little bit. You said usness. Sounds like a made-up word. Can you
It is.
It is.
describe
totally
this
made up.
It's like a Dr. Seuss word.
I like
the teacher in me.
That's right. Perfect.
It's a Dr. Hargrave word, and it basically refers to the thing you created when you decided to commit to one another. Think of it as the day you got married. A good illustration of this is your unity candle. It's a practice that people used to do if you did that, but the idea. You have these two candles that are lit, and you walk up and you light that unity candle, and traditionally people then blow themselves out, which we think is a dumb thing to do.
He hates that.
Because marriage is not about dying and blowing yourself out. It is about bringing me and my light to the usness that we have created. The usness is then that it's now a third entity. There's Nan, there's Ron, and there's us. And like a child, we have to feed this thing. We have to care for it. We have to nurture it. If we mistreat it, we have to apologize. We have to redeem it, and we have to try to repair sometimes. That's your usness. Now, let me give you another practical illustration. When I'm at my worst, I'm beating up our usness. When we're escalating, we're depleting the usness. Likewise, there are things that the usness likes that Ron doesn't like. My wife used to be a runner. Now she's a fast walker. She is tough to keep up with, let me tell you. I've had knee problems a good bit of my life because of an old injury. Long story. Bottom line is I can't keep up with her. But recently I had surgery, and now I can. At least I'm trying to. And let me just tell you, even after a really good, vigorous walk with lots of great conversation, Ron does not like walking. And I would prefer not to ever walk ever again with my wife if I had to. But our usness likes to go walking. Our usness is fed by the time, the effort, the energy, what comes through it. I don't enjoy it, but the usness does. And for me, that makes it worthwhile.
Yes. One of the things we've learned from the Hargraves, as well as I'm continuing to move through your book, is that there's two primary elements in life that get robbed when our usness is breaking down.
right?
Would you be willing to maybe
Yeah.
share about those two elements?
Yeah, the two foundations of any good relationship is love and trust.
Yes.
Love is that thing that gives us a sense of identity. It tells us who we are, where we belong, who matters to us, where we fit. It shows us that we're worthy and important.
So when he does go on those walks with me, I really do feel loved.
Yeah.
I feel loved in that moment. That he sees me, that's something that I love to do. I want to take care of myself, and he's joining me because he wants to be with me. Even though it's not something he likes, he's loving me in that moment.
That's
and
right.
I love that.
I would imagine it makes you feel special because he probably doesn't go out and walk with anyone other than you.
Right.
That's exactly right. Because
Right.
Ron hates walking.
He does.
Trust is about emotional safety. If I can trust you, I can lean into you. I can put myself in your care, in your arms, and you can depend on me. That's a mutual two-way street. And so there's a sense of safety that comes with it. And all you have to do is say the word affair or infidelity. And we all know you can't trust. You don't have safety, right? That's the polar opposite of it.
Yep.
So yeah, safety is really, really important. And when you put love and safety together in a relationship, I can take a deep breath. I have peace about what's going on.
And those coping styles really don't show either one.
Right.
There's no love or trust when we do those things. When
Blame,
we
shame,
blame,
control. Yeah.
when we shame, when we control the situation, and when we escape. I think that's where those get knocked down a lot.
Yeah, it's like we go to the blame, shame, control, escape thing in order to try to get love and safety back. That's what we're trying to do at the end of the day. And it's really upside down, and it just sabotages the process. But that's really what we're trying to do is restore what we feel like we're missing.
Yeah. For some reason, we believe that's going to work and ease our discomfort and pain, but it actually does the opposite.
Right.
It actually gets us deeper into the pain because it's not working.
Right.
I'm thinking about somebody listening right now who has a co-parent relationship with a former spouse with whom they don't have a lot of trust. I mean, you were married and something happened and you don't trust them anymore and you're no longer in that type of intimate relationship. And yet you're striving for a minimal level of trust in your co-parent relationship. You're trying to reorient now around parenting children, not being lovers and companions and friends necessarily, but being friendly, so you're striving for a different level of safety, but you still need that. Otherwise, you don't know what to depend on. You don't know if they're going to show up on time. And anybody listening who doesn't have any trust, period, with their co-parent, know what a crazy, chaotic relationship it is. See, those two things are really, really important for relationships to have any stability to them at all.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, your book is focused on marriage, how we use this tool of emotional regulation in the context of your relationship. But you're absolutely right, Ron. I mean, since we've learned this tool, we use it at work.
Every
I use
relationship.
it with my co-parenting relationship with our children. I use it with my road rage. I mean, you can use it in any situation in life where you get dysregulated and you do it for yourself. You said a few minutes ago, Nan, I don't like who I am when I'm in my pain and when I'm doing these copes. I don't enjoy myself. And then later I have regret.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, this builds usness. It keeps us connected and collaborating as a team, this tool, but it's also for us. Right.
Yes.
When we think about how much time we spend in these copes getting us nowhere, it's like,
Yes.
Exactly.
not that for us.
Okay, I just got to tag on to that. First of all, let me just say that because of the principle that you just shared, there are 2 chapters at the end of our book where we say, okay, look, marriage has been the first relationship we've made these applications to. But now let's think about your managerial relationship with people at work. Let's think about parenting. Let's think about and we help generalize that to lots of relationships for people. But let's pull back for a second. Listen to what we just said. What we just said is that a whole lot of our marriage and key relationships comes down to who I am and how I manage me. Most of us have this romantic Hollywood fantasy sort of idea that I find somebody who makes me more than I am. I'm sorry. That's not the way it works. Now, they contribute to who you are. We encourage one another. I'm her biggest cheerleader, at least I'm trying to be,
Yes.
because I see stuff in her that she
Right.
didn't always see in herself. I'm trying to help lift that up and out of her. But at the end of the day, I do not live her life.
Yes.
I cannot change things in her and make her to be who I think she ought to be. Hear the arrogance of that. Like, that's not within my power, let alone my job. And so each of us working on us, growing up, if I could say it that way, in maturing as adults, is how we get to be the best people and bring the best usness to our relationship.
And we've all been around people who haven't done their work,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Still stuck in their pain or
Still
their addiction
stuck.
or whatever.
Doing the same
Yes,
things
and-
over and over.
Right. And we know what control we have over that.
Yeah.
Absolutely none. I
Yeah.
mean, this is my control here. I can control
Right.
me.
Yeah.
You know, like last week where I got a little dysregulated. Ron had mentioned a calendar moment of a meeting he was going to have with a couple of guys. And I instantly felt this pain.
Yeah.
And I stopped and I said, well, wait, Nan, what's this about? This is very familiar. You know, because anytime he'd ever tell me, I'm traveling here, I'm going to go meet with this, and this person, he'd come home and add a truckload to the platter that was already heaping. And then that pushed him further and further away from me. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, what am I feeling here? Really, is this mine to control? I can lovingly talk to him about it and say, you know what, baby, your platter is huge right now. And if you go to that meeting, maybe you should be careful, cautious to not overcommit. But at the end of the day, it's Ron who's got to make that decision whether he overcommits or not me. But I don't have to slam doors. I don't have to blame him, shame myself, or even shame him, or control this scenario, or even get so dysregulated that I want to escape it. But at the end of the day, I've got to manage me and he's got to manage him.
Yeah. And the other factor here is with time,
Yes.
we've learned to trust
Right.
one another.
Yes.
We've learned to
Yes.
trust that, our usness is off. It's okay. You know, we still get
Yes.
triggered, but we're going to find the way back. There's a confidence. But I got to tell you, back in the day, we didn't have any of that. And somebody's listening right now going, I don't know how to trust anything.
Yeah.
You know, I don't
Yeah,
know
yeah.
how to lean into the possibility of things getting better. I can't even imagine things getting better. Hey, been there, done that.
Yeah.
And we will both tell you there were seasons of our life where she was trying and I wasn't, and I was trying and she wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. It can be really, really hard.
Mm-hmm.
You want to stay in your lane? Do you want to work on you and in those moments and just try to get through the next, good moment, bring the best of you to the next moment, and just trust that somehow will lead to something that can be a better usness. But the triggers keep coming, as
Yes.
Nan said.
Yes.
Like, it's how I manage it that gets different.
Right. So we've got these two elements, love and trust. And every time we've worked through this process with couples that we get to work with, I always ask, do you think you want more love and trust in your relationship? And I haven't run into a couple yet that says, nah, we don't need any more of that.
I was
Right?
going to
Good.
say,
Once
yeah.
more.
Yeah. Everybody wants more love and trust. But what we've been
Yes.
talking about here is we're saying every time we slip into this blame, shame, control, escape reaction to those painful moments, I am eroding love and trust in my relationship.
Yeah, we're destroying usness.
But wait a second. We just said we want more love and trust.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got to figure out, Ron, you said earlier, like looking in the mirror, I got to figure out how I'm going to look in the mirror and say, no. What do I need to do, whether it's a good moment or a bad moment, to actually build love and trust, not erode love and trust, because we both contribute to both.
Yeah.
Yep.
Did I get all that right?
Yep.
Yes.
That's right.
The amazing thing we've learned practicing this tool is that when one of us is all it takes is one of us to stay in our lane. Like you said,
Yeah.
Ron, I got to stay in my lane and take care of myself. This is my baggage I brought in. I need to understand it. I need to do the unpacking and deal with this. Every time one of us stays in our lane and manages our own emotions and stays regulated, it can completely change the trajectory of a tough moment.
Yes.
It makes a huge impact. So we can't control each other, but we can greatly influence where
That's
we
right.
end up together
Mm.
when we're experiencing conflict or a tough season.
Now, the one thing we absolutely agree, the one thing we don't want anybody to hear us say is if you're in a physically abusive relationship, for example, that this means you just work harder on you
Yeah.
and you're going to be able.
That's right.
Yeah, let's just say that out loud, that there are extremes that you need to seek safety first outside of that relationship
Definitely.
in order to bring the safety back into the relationship.
Yeah.
So you got to involve other people.
And boundaries can be a very good thing.
Yes.
Of
Right.
course.
A healthy
Because
thing.
really what we're saying is you start responding out of a truth that you are worth more than how the other person is treating you. Because you are. You're inherently worth more than that. See, that's the thing I had to learn about my inadequacy concerns about me was even when I'm not good enough, I'm still okay. You know,
That's right.
wow, did I really have to work on that? And I just had to be able to put words on that. And then I had to begin to outline, as you guys know, there's a process. Understanding yourself is one thing, but learning how to change is another. The second part of what we teach in the book is the process of saying, all right, this is my old self, and now I'm going to figure out this new guy I'm trying to become. If it is okay that I'm inadequate sometimes, how do I respond in moments when I really have that feeling, in particular with Nan, so that I don't react out of my inadequacy and instead be responsive out of a loving, safe posture as a husband. That's the guy I want to be. So how do I actually do that? And we'll help people actually sequence and map that. You're going to physically put it down in the book in ways that help you go, oh, this is who I'm supposed to be, and this is how I get there.
Yeah, we love that framework.
And I love that it is so practical in the way you've baked the tools right into the book. Where
It really
people
is a
can use it.
workbook within a book.
Yeah, I noticed that. Even if it's like, okay, if you're filling this out right here in the middle of this chapter, there's a second copy of this in the back of the book that your spouse can go and fill out. So you both have opportunity to really work through it. I love the way that you have made it so accessible and so practical. I know that took an investment and probably a lot of work to figure out,
did.
okay,
It
how
did.
does all this fit together?
I
Yeah.
could go on and on
Appreciate
about
that.
how hard that was to get it right.
Yeah, I love that. Ron, you can tell me, I've said this to a lot of couples, and so in your expert opinion, I'd like to know if I'm saying this correctly or not. But one of the ways that I've put the kind of the vision or the goal around getting to that new self, this new guy that I want to be as I'm making this investment in these hard moments, is I say that, the intimacy that we're seeking is actually built on the other side of tough moments done well.
Yes.
Like when we get through a really hard moment and we don't lose it, I don't go into control or blame mode, and Kim doesn't go into shame and escape, and we hang in there with each other, we resolve it in a reasonable period of time, and we get to the other side, it's like, man, we just feel closer. We feel more
Yes.
connected, even more than when we are having a great day and we're hanging out on the beach and we're just sitting around doing nothing. It's actually the other side of tough moments done well that I believe really builds intimacy.
And confidence.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
When I can hang in there, because I'm an escape, that's one of my copes is escape and shame.
Mhm.
When I can hang in there with Mike in a tough moment and stay regulated and work through it, I gain so much confidence that, hey, I can do hard things. I can hang in there. I don't have to run away and hide and beat myself up. And when I think of how much time I have wasted in what we now lovingly call my pity pit, where I would just hang out
I
for
like
days
that.
and beat myself up and throw myself a pity party. When I think of how much time I wasted in my pity pit, it just breaks my heart because
Yeah.
I have the capacity to hang in there. And so on the other side of conflict and tough conversations, I mean, it's just amazing. It's amazing.
What would you tweak or add to that thought?
I don't know that I'd tweak it at all. I just, I want people to know that we said earlier that the brain is habit forming. And so what you learn to do to cope with feeling unloved or unsafe becomes a habit. and it becomes embodied, meaning it's neurological. There are synapses that have wired, and they have wired together, and all they know to do, we call it the brain ruts, right? All they know to do is to run to escape or run to control.
To go to the pity pit.
And you don't have to think about it. You just do it. It's like
easy.
the rattlesnake when you're walking up on it and it's making a noise. You go into fight or flight. You don't think, you just do. This emotional dysregulation is don't think, just do, and it happens. That is embodied. That can feel tremendously overwhelming. Like, oh no, how do you change that? Well, that's the beautiful thing about how we're created. There's a neuroplasticity to your brain, to your entire body, actually. It will bend. It will reshape.
It can change.
And here's what does it. Not just thinking different thoughts, but actually doing them. It's the same principle of muscle memory. If you're going to learn how to hit a baseball, you're going to learn how to hit a golf ball, you're going to learn how to go bowling or hit pickleball, whatever it is, how to play that game. You're lousy at it when you first start. And the more you practice, the easier it gets. And then you don't have to think about it. You just swing the bat and hit it. That is the exact same thing that happens with us emotionally in relationships. You learn how, and it's awkward and arduous and difficult, and you got to put a lot of intentionality into it the first time you swing that bat. But eventually it becomes second nature. Practice, practice, practice.
And that's what I would say to people who are picking up this book. It is a book, and it is a workbook, and it is work. And so I would say don't just read it and set it on the pile of books that you read in 2025. But really do the work, because it will improve your usness, and it will just change. It'll be a game changer if you put in the work.
The principles of this book are used in the therapeutic world with drug addictions, anxiety, depression, eating disorders, on and it goes. We're going to apply it to one thing in this book, but once you get started, the beautiful thing is you'll find it rippling over into lots of areas of your life where you begin to feel more self-control, more self-discipline in lots of ways that just help you to be the person that you like, that you want to be, and that benefits lots of relationships.
Yeah, it's really about moving from reactivity to empowerment.
That's exactly right. You take agency over your life. You're no longer a victim of your own emotions and your own pain. Most of us spend our entire life. I went to graduate school, was a therapist for a long time before I had this crisis where I began to really discover this stuff in me. And I would say that I had no idea how the pain of my childhood, as moderate as it is, and believe me, I had a good family growing up. But there was just this piece of me that just felt like I got to perform to find my adequacy. And that little pain drove me in ways I look back now and go, oh my word, I was a victim of my own pain and had no idea. On the outside, you would have said, Ron's successful, is a great guy. And in many ways that was true. But on the inside, I never felt it because I'm pain driven. I think most people are like that. When you begin to go, I don't want to live that way anymore. I'd like to move beyond this. Thankfully, we can.
It's interesting, that little example you just used, Ron, it kind of reinforces what Nan just said about don't let this book be, on the pile of what you read in 2025. You actually have to practice what's in it. So Ron spent all this time getting educated and all this knowledge and everything else to be this family therapist and in the therapy world for a long time. And yet when it came to the application for his own personal life, he needed some help. He needed to be able to do something different.
Right.
I love your vulnerability and your openness around that, Ron, because most of us are not trained therapists. And we have this idea that somebody who has lived your experiences must have it all figured out, and they must just have it so perfect and wonderful.
So let me tell you a fun little secret. Most physicians get an illness of some type at some point in their life. I've hung around with some of the best-selling authors and researchers in the marriage and family world, and they're a little goofy just like everybody else. Like, that's the truth. Like, we all have stuff, and the sooner you face it, the sooner you can be relieved of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the reality is any of us can do this.
Mhm.
This
Yes.
is there for the taking.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
this is worthy work.
Yes.
This
Yes.
is worthy work because, like you were talking, Ron, we can build new neural pathways in our brain that don't cause us to be our worst self.
Mm.
And what we found is when you exercise those new neural pathways that take you to that place of peace, the new self, the best you,
Yeah.
those old ones, they start to dry up.
Yeah.
Right.
I cannot remember the last time I slipped into my pity pit
Uh,
because
Mhm.
I worked really hard at living in this new way and staying engaged and hanging in there and living in my truth and not spiraling into those copes.
Mhm.
Right.
And it's become a new normal for us. Now,
Totally.
those pains still hit. Those pains are
Mhm.
always going to be there. It's what we do with them.
Mhm.
right.
And so it's
Exactly.
it's there for anyone. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like I love that your whole concept. So we're putting cookies on the bottom shelf. Come get them.
Yeah.
Come get 'em. Eat them up.
It's
Exactly.
accessible and it takes some work.
It
The-
does take
Yes.
work.
The cool part is we often say, this is a really simple tool, but simple and
Mhm.
easy are two different things.
Uh,
It's going to
yeah.
take some work. It's going
That's
to
well
take
said.
some effort and all that. And how awesome is it to have a simple tool
Ah,
when the work is
It's
hard?
not complicated.
Mhm.
You just got to be willing.
Yeah.
One thing that just occurred to me. So our youngest son is 26. Over the last few years, these principles have come out of us in terms of how we are.
Mhm.
We're not parenting him anymore. Adult relationship with our son. Mentoring him is really that's what we're trying to posture ourselves as is at this point. We ask different questions based on what we've learned. We're helping him to chase his own pain and understand what's motivating him and to do certain things. So he's making different decisions for himself. I wish somebody would have come alongside me when I was 26
Oh, yes.
and
Yes.
handed me these tools. So again, it ripples out in lots of ways.
Mhm.
The book just applies it to marriage first.
Definitely. And what a great example you can live out in front of your children when you're able to regulate your emotions in a really tense situation in front of the whole family. And instead of blowing up or running out of the room or doing what you normally do, you
Right.
manage yourself, you show up well, and your kids' jaws drop to the ground because your kids know
Right.
your copes.
Yes, they
Right,
do.
right.
But imagine if you could model something different, how amazing that would be.
It is
Yeah.
how they learn their copes by watching
yeah.
us and seeing what we do.
Sure.
And I mean, there's a reason that there are things that seem generational. And so you're absolutely right.
Yeah, my pity pit cope I learned from my mom. That's what she
Yeah,
did whenever
yeah.
my parents were experiencing conflict. She'd lock herself away in the bedroom for 2 or 3 days and get depressed.
Mm,
And so I just grew up thinking, well, that's what you do when
Yeah.
Sure.
when there's conflict. You just
Right.
escape and run away.
Mhm.
It's breaking the cycle, and it's breaking cycles within ourselves. And like we said before, everybody not everybody, but most people want a new start in a new year. They may, start with a resolution, and some of those fall by the wayside in 2 weeks or a month. And we're just asking people to hang in there with us and really give it a try and do the work and start to see the fruit that's coming from it that is going to bring to yourself, not only the gift that it gives to yourself, but to your usness. And it
Mhm.
truly is transforming. It really is. Like you said, you can see those old ways and then you're like, but I really don't ever want to go back to that.
I don't
Absolutely.
have to.
Yeah, right.
So we've
Mhm.
talked about this old self and new self. Like I want to be in this new self space, particularly when we're having this difficult moment, so that rather than eroding love and trust, I can actually build love and trust. And I know the book is so focused on the practical ways to do that, but I wonder if we took a few minutes here while people are listening to kind of give a vision for, well, that all sounds great, but in
Mhm.
practical terms, how do we actually do that? Because sometimes something that sounds too good to be true really is.
Mhm.
But this one is true. And we are living examples
Yeah.
of it
This
just
is not
as
a gimmick.
as
This
you guys are.
works.
So how would you describe it in really practical terms that could give our listeners a vision for what that sounds like?
So how about I just give you a real life example of right at this moment.
Great.
Okay. So, what I've come to know about me is inadequacy and fear of not being good enough is a core pain in my life that drives me to then blame and control my environment, people around me, my circumstances, so that I come out looking adequate. So, by the way, do you think saying all that to anybody listening right now and to you guys that are trusted friends that I appreciate and value the work that you do, you think I love to own that in front of people? That's showing my inadequacy. Why in the world would I want to show that? So knowing that, here's the little 4-step process that I'm saying to myself right now. I'm feeling a little inadequate being on this podcast. And what I usually do with that is I want to somehow spin the story so I look better than I really am, and other people will think well of me. So I need to tell the story that way. But the truth is, step 3, the truth is I could be inadequate and still be a good person and still be okay and still be lovable. And actually, I'm more than adequate most of the time, and mistakes are sort of okay. And so because that's true, I'm going to go ahead and tell the world that I'm afraid of being inadequate. And I'm going to own it, and I'm not going to pretend, and I'm going to put it in a book and publish it where God knows who's going to read it, wherever they live. And they're going to learn that about me, even though I've been hiding that my entire life.
Yeah.
That is real. I'm not making that up. That is the 4-step process you learn in the book.
Right there.
Applied to your particular pain. This is not do what Ron and Ann do. This is figure out your need and your pathway. But there's the 4-step process. Now, we'll tell people why you have to actually say that out loud. I just said it out loud. Is there any benefit to that? Actually, neurologically, there is. It helps your brain develop new pathways, new ruts. Only these ruts are healthier ruts than the ruts that you have. So you have to overcome them. Number 2, saying it out loud informs the people around you. And in this case, if we're talking about a marriage situation, if I were to say that out loud in front of Nan, she, in a moment, especially when she generally expects me to get defensive and argumentative and try to talk her into thinking differently about me, but all of a sudden I say out loud, I'm not going to do that because I know what's going on with me. And instead, I'm going to do this, not that. She gets a signal that says to her, wow, Ron's trying to change.
Who is this guy?
Who is this guy? What did he do with my husband?
What'd you do with my husband?
And it signals to her something's different happening between us. We know the old dance really, really well.
Right.
But a signal to her that there's a new dance a-coming and Ron's taking responsibility for himself helps to set up the likelihood. It won't guarantee it, but it makes it more likely that Nan will say, oh, and I wonder what I should be attending to in me. I wonder what I need to do differently. It makes it more likely that not just one person brings something new, but 2 people bring something new. And you do that over and over, practice, muscle memory, and eventually it becomes far more likely to happen, far more expected. Instead of anticipating the worst, you actually start expecting the better.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, there's been a transformation of you as an individual and what your usness between you.
Yes.
What a great
that's
vision.
A great example.
Absolutely. What a great vision for this is so practical and so accessible. And yet I would imagine, Ron, on the front end, when you were first learning this back in 2007,
Awkward.
It was awkward and hard and difficult. Right. And maybe even there was some resistance in you to doing that. Is that right? Or do I have
absolutely. I think there's a pride in most of us that sort of is that, hey, I don't, I'm not the only one who has to change around here, and we start throwing that finger pointing at the other person saying, here's
back to blame.
Back to blame. I know exactly what you ought to be doing. So yes, absolutely. And you have to fight that. And I would say there are layers. And, Nan and I believe and trust in God, and we think He is kind enough to give us layers one at a time. Like, I didn't know this went back to my relationship with my father. Like that was a layer that came with time. Oh my goodness, I've been doing this not just in this precedes my marriage. Whoa, I can't blame Nan anymore. This is about me.
Right.
This was in me before she ever showed up in my life. Like every one of those little layers is like, oh no, there's another thing that I got to look at.
And I tried to tell him. I tried so hard to get him to know that. I mean, it was so obvious to everyone but him. He had to come about that on his own, just like I had to come about my stuff and my copes and my pain on my own. I couldn't rely on him to fix that or teach me about it.
Right.
I had to do that work myself, and he's had to do that work himself. But it really does soften you to each other when that is happening. It really, truly does. When he does something like that, I'm kind of going, wow. And to people that he's known and taught for a long time, that's really vulnerable of him. Wow. It's a beautiful thing to see. But you have to stay in your lane.
Yeah.
Even when you want to bounce over to their lane and go, yeah. And did you see that one too? And that one too?
This is important. And again, we talk about
we
this
want to
in the
do
mindful
each other's. We want to do each other's work.
And
we can't.
Again, this is one of the sticky points for couples that are really in distress. And we had seasons where, okay, now I'm doing my work, but I don't trust you enough for me to bring you in on my work.
Yeah.
And that's honest. And I think that's understandable, that there has been enough hurt between you
Yeah.
that you really can't trust the other person with your realizations about yourself. So it's not easy to be vulnerable. We tell people, you do your work. And in the book, we kind of say, when you're ready, if you feel safe enough, share this with your spouse and listen to their side. Them do. But if you're not safe enough, it's okay. You don't have to do that today.
Right.
Give it a little time. Just keep doing the work.
Yeah. What I love about that, it's definitely reflective in our story as well. When we first were getting married, I'm Kim's third husband. And one of the things she asked me as we were heading toward the wedding is, hey, when we run into the tough season, whatever that's going to be.
Not if, but when.
When. Are you willing? Are you willing to go get help?
Huh.
And I was like, yeah, of course I am. Sure. And then 10 years in, when that moment hit, we were right on the verge. And I said, honey, I think it's time that we go get help. And Kim said,
nope. No, because I was not in an emotional place to get help. I was so raw and just no energy, no motivation.
Escape.
Escape. I'm just done. I can't do it.
Yeah. So what was so interesting and why I think that relates to what you're sharing here is, I don't know. We are people of faith, and I believe it was just God's grace, because we both know that there was probably a good 2 months there where if one of us had come home and said, I'm done, the other one would have said, great, let's sign the papers.
Yeah.
We never did that. And in fact, instead, a couple months later, I came home and said, I'm just not okay with this. And I don't know what you're going to do, but I'm going to go get help. And when I went and got help, and I did, and Kim was like, do whatever you want. I don't care. You go to, whatever. I started getting help. And what happened was I started responding to these hard moments differently. And over time, because of that, Kim began to soften and realize, wow, Mike is different. Yeah. Maybe I want to go be different too.
Yeah.
And then she came along and away we went.
What you're saying is so important, because we've been talking about pain all along, and we got to talk about the other side of the coin.
Yeah.
The flip side of pain is desire.
Yeah.
It's love. It's you want this person. You want this relationship.
Want it to work.
That's why you're there. That's why you have pain, because it's not working. Right. And so the pain is exemplary of the desire. But it's easy to lose that desire. It's easy to say, I'm not going to act out of that desire and pursue within my desire, because right now the pain is overwhelming. Exactly. So when one person, somebody goes first, just do what you can do. It can get to the place where the desire can start percolating again.
That's exactly what happened when I saw Mike making efforts and actually changing how he showed up. Yeah. I was like, whoa, what's happened to Mike? I want some of that. I want
In a
to.
good way.
Yeah. I
That's
wanted
awesome.
to pursue something different. And we did a lot of individual work on
Mhm.
ourselves. In fact,
Good
the
for you.
mass majority of our therapeutic parts of our
Experience,
marriage
yeah.
were individual
Mhm.
because we both came in with lots of baggage. Like you said, Ron, we had stuff.
I just, my hope is that people don't start into the book and run from the pain.
Yeah.
Really, we did a conference one time and we were unpacking just the first part about pain. And I'll never forget, this gentleman came up and he goes, "Okay, thanks so much for opening Pandora's box tonight. I'm going on this trip of there's my mother and the loss of our daughter," and on he went. And he just kind of shut down. And my hope is that people will see it for what it is. Yes, we have pains. Yes, we bring them in. They come in as we're living out this life. But you don't have to be shackled to them your whole life. And you don't have to be shackled to the copes that come along with those. There's hope in that. And like you said, it doesn't have to look like everybody else's plan. I mean, I get help. Well, we have to get help together. Or no, if I get help and then you get help, or we're doing this together, or one's doing it, but then another one comes along and sees, oh, I see some change. However it works for your relationship. And if it needs to be a counseling situation, a 12-step program, there's an addiction involved, or, you have to get a mentor involved that kind of helps with the process of you all talking about your pains with one another. I just hope people don't halt and get afraid when it comes to things that this process unearths, because I think those things are being unearthed for a reason.
Yeah.
And we don't want to stay stuck.
Yeah.
And they're going to come out one way or another, right, Nan?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're surfacing anyway. We just, whether they're conscious or unconscious, they're surfacing.
Right.
One
Yeah.
form or
Right.
another.
Yeah. If you can hold on to this belief, even if it's a little tiny, microcosm belief that things can be better
Yes.
beyond this discomfort and pain,
Mm-hmm.
that will get you there. Just take
Yes.
one step at a time,
Mm-hmm.
and things can get better.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing, and it's freeing.
Mhm.
My primary pain point, same as yours, Ron. I feel inadequate, based in childhood, all of that. But I tried to hide it for so long and pretend that, no, I'm good, I'm fine, and just it's so exhausting trying to hide how you're really feeling, right?
Yes.
Playing all
Yes.
the games. And when I went through this process and I'm able to say I'm feeling inadequate,
Yes.
it's freeing.
Yeah.
It's liberating. It's like, here it is. It is what it is. I'm a human being, and here's what I feel. It's okay. I don't have to
Right.
be shameful of it or run away from it. That is amazing.
It is. And the irony is that it takes far more emotional energy to not cope with pain
That's right.
than it does to suck it up, do the work, and get it out there and be done with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and be free from the shackles, like Nan
Yeah.
said.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ron, earlier you mentioned co-parenting relationships and some of the challenges and whatnot. I know this is for every relationship, every marriage. Like I get this is a tool for life, not just for marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Our podcast is the Blended Family Breakthrough, right? I'm wondering from your perspective, what might be either unique or really special about how this can help couples in blended families?
I've written 9 books for blended families, and I will tell you, I think this is the most important book I've written. This one's not written specifically for blended families, but I think the application to blended couples and family dynamics is huge.
Yes.
So if marriage has a pain cycle and a peace cycle we're trying to create, you and your ex have a pain cycle. You and your stepchild have a pain cycle.
Yeah.
And those pain cycles all intersect with one another. And here's what's unique for blended family couples. In my experience, and when I teach step family therapy to clinicians, and one of the things I say to them is in first marriages, what feeds the pain cycle for most couples has to do with stuff from their family of origin or some things that they've sort of, often family of origin, but some things that have crept up in their relationship. For couples in blended families, it's family of origin, the previous relationship, the end of demise, death, divorce, or breakup of that previous relationship, and the new pain that has come out of that death or divorce. And now the new, there's like 5 different things.
Yeah.
And then we're going to add a 6th. And the 6th one is what often triggers pain in the couple's relationship has to do with pain in children.
Yes.
So I see in my child, or they don't want to come home because their step-parents in the house and they're not getting along. So they'd rather be at a friend's house than come home. Well, I want my kid to be in my house and I want them to feel safe in the home. And you new spouse, step-parent, are the problem, keeping my kid from wanting to be here. So pain in the child triggers pain in the couple's relationship.
Absolutely.
And so you have new and expanded layers that trigger all the bad stuff that rises up inside of us. I think blended couples can have more entrenched pain, meaning, yes, it was family of origin. Yes, it's about your first husband. And yes, it's about this marriage. And that just feels thicker, deeper, wider, and uglier than just, oh yeah, I'm just trying to figure out something from my dad, my relationship with my father. Like it's just more entrenched. And so if you're not proactive and saying, what is this? And chasing your pain and understanding and knowing how you're going to manage it differently, you will just keep repeating same old stuff and it will just feel more and more overwhelming.
And it's going to trickle out and impact your blended family.
Right.
For instance, the couple who are fighting and the spouse is blaming the new step parent, it's your fault, and they're fighting, and the kids are aware of this conflict and this fighting between. Why would they want to come and grow closer to that step parent if they believe this relationship
That's right.
is unhealthy and going to break up anyway?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. They lose their motivation to figure out the relationship. The step parent loses their motivation. Everything crumbles because it's all interconnected.
Yeah.
And it can all, here's the hope. It can all begin slowly to move in a different direction if one person gets a hold of who they are in any given relationship. And the beautiful thing about this is, if I'm a step parent, the pain cycle thing I'm wrestling with in my marriage, in other words, what I'm trying to say is the triggers and the pain behind those triggers is the same with my spouse, with my stepchildren, with my ex, with my mother-in-law, it's not like you have a totally different set of things you got to wrestle with here, there, that set you off, that trigger you. They tend to be generally the same issues. So get a hold of yourself in one relationship and you will begin to have greater success in the other relationships. Not immediately, nothing happens fast or overnight, but it is the same process.
Absolutely. Yeah. We've had the wonderful experience of living that out as well in the way that it started here between the two of us, but this transforming tool has really made a huge transformation in all of the relationships.
It's completely changed my relationship with my mom and my family of origin, not because they've changed. They're the same people who they were doing their same things. It's because I've changed.
Right.
I show up differently. I have learned to regulate my emotions so that I'm not this, difficult, angsty person to be around because I'm constantly in my pain cycle around them. No, I can show up and be in my peace cycle, and that draws them closer to me. And now we have a whole new way of connecting that we haven't had for 40 years.
Yeah.
Completely changed.
That's off
That's
the
awesome.
charts, actually.
Oh yeah. Mike is amazed at the difference.
I used to be like, who do you become when we go to visit your family? Like what happens to you?
We've had similar
constant
conversations in our house. We have.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow, what a privilege.
We were so thrilled to hear when you told us you were writing this book. We were just over the moon because this is an amazing resource for us to recommend to blended couples, because you're absolutely, I agree with you, Ron, that this is such an important concept of blending.
Yes.
Learning to manage the discomfort and the distress that you're going to experience.
Yeah, and do it well in a way that builds love and trust.
And change
doesn't
everything.
erode love and
Mhm.
trust. Yeah. You two are just so real and vulnerable and
Yes.
practical. And thank you. I know that, like I said earlier, we're people of faith. And I know that God is using the pain that you've experienced to really bless other people.
Yeah.
And we're a part of that. We get to witness that as
Mhm.
well. And so what a privilege.
Yes.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you,
So
friends. Thank you for
appreciative.
having us. Thank you for
Absolutely.
being our cheerleaders and our support. We feel that, and I receive that. That is that is a blessing to us as well.
Awesome.
And I love what you're doing on this podcast and how you're serving families.
Thank you. I am curious as we kind of bring this to a close. We might have lots of people reaching out, and we'll put a link to the book. I'm assuming you can get it anywhere books are sold at this
That's right.
point in time. We'll put a link out there for people to grab their copy. And when they do, what they're going to find is that this book is written from a Christian perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder, we might have a lot of listeners who are listening right now who aren't yet ready to enter into kind of a relationship with God from that perspective.
Sure.
But yet they might still need the practical tools that you offer. What would you say to somebody who really needs to learn these tools and wants to learn these tools, but feel a little bit tripped up by that perspective?
The principles that Dr. Hargrave teaches have been taught in secular settings as well as with Christian practitioners.
Yes.
And so the principles transfer over. If you think there's anything to neuroscience, you're going to appreciate what's here. Whether there is a theological component to that neuroscience, you can decide whether you buy into that or not. But take the practicality of it and let that be something that you apply to your life. And I think you'll discover that the practicality becomes truth and life-giving for you, whether you necessarily buy into all of the background pieces or not.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's really helpful. I want to add to that. I think I shared this with you before, Ron. I've been working in a local organization. We have about 1,300 employees, and I kind of head up our employee development department. And I've been working with individuals using this process in the work setting. We've just replaced the word love with care, and it's about building care and trust, and we build those components in. And some people have a faith background, and some people don't. And I continue to find that regardless, the value and the growth that comes, it happens in both ways. And so I just reinforce exactly what you say. Don't miss out on something that could change your life because you're just unsure about some of the personal beliefs of another person.
Yes.
And so I just encourage anyone listening to hop over, use the link on the show notes and head over and grab Ron and Nan's book, The Mindful Marriage.
Yes.
Really powerful.
Absolutely.
If you want to leave one final thought for our listeners, each of you, what might that final thought be?
I'd say if we can do it, you can do it.
Yes. And I would say, do this for you and do this for your usness.
Yes.
Awesome.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Ron and Nan, if someone wants to reach out to you, I know we're going to put a link to the book in the show notes, but if they want to reach out to you personally, how might they be able to do that?
rondeal.org. rondeal.org will get you to our website. There's a contact form there. You can ask questions. By the way, we've got free bonus material at the site that the editors made us take out of the book. And so I said, we're going to give it away.
Yeah.
Bonus material.
Absolutely.
Yes, freebies.
Go get it.
Love it.
Well, we will definitely link to that as well, rondeal.org. Thank you so much, Ron and Nan, for your investment and for just your time with us today as well.
Yes, we love the book. We love what you guys are doing. We're your cheerleaders, and we just are thrilled that you had the time to come and spend with us today and help our listeners. You guys do bring amazing value.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. What a great discussion with Ron and Nan.
Oh, yeah.
We are so grateful for their influence in our lives personally and the example they set of humility, transparency, hard work, and hope.
Absolutely. And if you'd like to learn how to use the tools that we discussed today, we encourage you to do two things. First, grab your copy of Ron and Nan's book, The Mindful Marriage, by simply following the link in our show notes. And second, reach out to us and allow us to help you implement the tools from the book into your relationship. Ron and Nan have done an incredible job of making this book practical for every person and everyday life. Yet, as we connect with more and more couples, we find that most of us need some partnership, guidance, and a little accountability to really get the most out of implementing tools like this. And we're trained to get you there.
That's right. So click the link in the show notes to schedule a free initial coaching session so that we can help you create your best relationship. Hey, thanks for joining us today, and be sure you're subscribed to the show so that you can catch next week's Simple Step, where we're going to share the good news and some bad news about the tools that we talked about today. For now, that's going to make this episode a wrap.
Until next time.